I wish you could all stand here. And the first thing actually I want to invite you is just turn around and look who is in the room. You, all of you, are the leaders who create the tomorrow. We don't know yet how tomorrow will look like. We do know it's different. We heard this morning in several amazing presentations. Oops, where's my picture? I also would like to ask you, if we don't know the future, I think many of us do know. Who here in the room is a parent? Please raise your hand. Oh, that's more than enough. I do think every one of you knows the future because you see this future in front of you every day. And so I today want to talk about evolutionary leaders. We heard a lot about larger organizational ideas, but at the end it all comes down to us, to me and to you, how the future will look like. And evolutionary leadership, in my opinion and my research, is the only way we really can go. At the end, leadership, we know, is not a position anymore. Leadership is a mindset. And it shouldn't be driven by your personal benefits, but by the greater good and the generations we see in front of us every day. So my second home is Silicon Valley. And it was just a month ago we came back to Germany, where we are constantly live. And I find myself in the middle of a huge crowd with exciting parents and smiling, exciting, toothless smiles of the little ones. I'm sure you had experiences too. And in this moment, a lot of things for me changed, because it hit me so hard that I was thinking about the importance of time and really how we create the future our little children will grow up in. We know our world is expanding exponentially. Everything is possible. We are excited and carried away by what is possible today. It looks like we are creating a seamless world where technology is our partner in every sense. We create smart cities and we create smart homes. We have smart applications and smart devices. But do we really need to give a mattress this power of knowing better when it's time for us to get up? We do know that we give up our steering wheel. And I do have to confess, as a German, it's still really hard to imagine. But we do know it's coming. And we do this to, on one hand, create safer roads, but also to have more time to focus on higher efficiency. So when we do that, I really can just ask again and again why we are not getting a grip on the true problems we are facing. We can create a seamless world. Why we are still seeing pollution, a lack of clean water. We are still seeing distraction, unhappy people in the workforce, and still we see wars happening which divides us instead of unites us. I clearly don't want that my child grows up in this world. And I think we all agree we need a new leadership. How does the leadership look like? We asked a lot of questions. What is the solutions? Do we know the solution now? We went through several revolutions. The Industrial Revolution, which made mechanical production possible. Many things we are doing right now are based on that revolution. 8 hours work a day. Waterfall leadership. We went then into a more precision-oriented revolution. Kaizen. Probably everyone worked with Kaizen and TQM. And then we went into the third industrial revolution. And that revolution was driven by the exponential innovation we are seeing right now. Entrepreneurs are driving this, computers are driving this, and automation is driving this. So what is now the fourth industrial revolution? Some call it the knowledge revolution. Others call it the cyber physics systems with artificial intelligence and everything that's possible there. But I do believe that in history, looking back of today, I would like that we say this is a revolution of wisdom. Because we looked at our Mother Earth and learned from biology, which we heard this morning, the ferns who are so smart, the way how nature is organized, how we live together, actually shows us how it all can work. And for that, we need a deep, deep wisdom, where computing and artificial intelligence is great because it helps us to concentrate on really, really true problems we have to tackle. And for that, I say we need evolutionary leaders. They only have one perspective, and that is what this little human being will grow up in. We can't let boardrooms and governments, the power centers of our world, be driven by personal benefits. The smart solutions we see right now are also needing smart decisions. And as I mentioned before, I think it's great to see innovation. My second home, Silicon Valley, is full of it. It's great what's happening there. It's good we have tools such as Scrum and design thinking and Kanban and open space. But at the end, it's about the new matrix we have to create. And we spoke about this in the morning before. The KPIs we have today are not working for this new system. So we need these evolutionary leaders who actually really create a new matrix, create new KPIs, who are behind that. And it's really shocking sometimes when you go in Silicon Valley to a startup event. Entrepreneurs are hyped. Everyone needs to be a startup. But if the startup doesn't put attention to the right decisions, it doesn't matter what they create. We just create more and more, but not the really true problems we tackle, which we have right now. So if you are at the startup conferences and you see these amazing young talents, what they are missing is actually maturity. And maturity comes, and we heard that before, if you put care to everything you do, and as Achim said, also putting love into that. I know we are a little bit before the lunch break. We heard so much about the head, and Achim was so great to bring this back to the heart. And now bring it back to your stomach, which is not hopefully hungry for food, but also hungry for a new solution where everyone can really be happy and playful. And as Suzanne showed us, playing in a sandbox, which is not triggered by pollution and the war next door. And so, please, evolutionary leaders, stand up and get into not just smart devices, but also smart choices. And many of you might have seen this because I'm sure you went through a lot of development programs as a leader from Harvard Business, which is called the 7 Stages of Leadership. This is a crucial matrix to look at because an evolutionary leader developed. He's not just born into it. He went through different understandings. It's a little bit if you face a death. You have to go through several stages to really get over this mourning of losing someone or losing something. And this is the same here. Usually what happens is the entrepreneurs stop at the achiever level. They didn't got higher. And here with Harvard Business, they call it the alchemist. The alchemist is the highest form. So in different situations, you bring in different methods, you bring in different decisions, you bring in different people. And the question was asked before, is like, how do I deal with that in a large corporation? Can I really, in 1 second, suddenly go open space? Maybe you can, maybe you cannot. But just don't ask that question, you need to do it. And during you do it, you learn it. There is not one answer right now. The only thing we know, we have to change the status quo. It cannot continue as it does. Everything's breaking down. We see that right now. Environmentally, politically, religious, everything is on a stand to really check if this matrix we created can continue that way. Maybe you have to do it radically. Maybe you have to do open space right now everywhere. Maybe you have to plant seeds, but don't hold back and do it. And do it with the alchemistic leadership. And as an evolutionary leader, go a little further. Every decision you make, you have to check with your gut if that decision is made for the next generation and not just for the greater good, for the good of the company or yourself. We talked also about the evils. And I believe there are no evils. Every person in the ground wants the same. They want to be loved and they want to be respected. But they got wounded on the way. And they need even more the consciousness, which is so crucial, really reflecting on it. So an evolutionary leader, after going through different stages of development, also encompasses 7 capabilities. First of all, he and she is extremely courageous. And courageous also means sometimes tough love. When you're a mother, when you're a parent, you know that. You always love your child. And sometimes you have to be with tough love presented because you keep them safe. But also, you need to be courageous to do the next step. Don't stop. Don't wait till someone shows you the way. You know the way. Also, continuously going this path. If you look at a Steve Jobs, at an Elon Musk, they got kicked out of their own companies. You know, like there is a barrier sometimes you have to overcome. But seize this longer way and continuous the way. Don't stop it. And always reflect on it and bring it further. Be confident in what you do. Don't question yourself too much, but bring it back to your own awareness. At the end, it comes back to you. That's where the work starts right now. The work doesn't start with putting in a Scrum or design thinking method. The work starts with reflecting who you are. Are you driven just by fight and flight? Are you driven by your old stories you learned when you grew up? It's really hard to make money. People are evil. I cannot do this. I'm a girl. You know, we have tons of biases in our head and towards the outside. If we have these stories in our mind, how can we even react to someone else? So consciousness and learning about yourself is so crucial. Also, because human hacking is getting further and further. You know, soon an implant in our head will tell us what we need to think and what others think. Don't you want to be really driving your own personality forward instead of being hacked by computers? We have to put the smart wisdom we have as human beings in these developments of technologies. And next to an IQ and an EQ and an LQ, there's a physical intelligence too. There's an environmental intelligence too. There's even spiritual intelligence too. Bring it all in and evolve as an evolutionary leader. Obviously, compassion, which goes along with love, and have compassion to yourself. We can't fail. I'm coming out of a culture where failing is not accepted. In Germany, we don't fail. We run like the Swiss clock on precision. But we are actually all human. We do fail. We fail in parenting, we fail in driving school, you fail in school, there's many things. It's okay. Just, don't do this mistake a second time. Learn from it and go again and exchange with others what you can learn out of it. Curiosity goes hand in hand with creativity, and Tobias mentions this so beautiful. The art of an artist. Bring that in. Start the morning. You don't know how the day unfolds. Start with being open what comes. Always be courageous about what did you mean with that? Can you elaborate a little bit more of it? How are you right now? Being open and curious, what is there? You will learn so much on the way and something totally new unfolds on that. The canvas we have in front of us, the future we have to paint, and we don't know how it looks right now. And at the end, obviously, it's a collective because we all don't do it alone. We can all only do it together. And bring it back to parenting, there's this beautiful saying, a child needs a village to be raised. That is the perfect idea. And if you look at science, in the first 2 years of development, actually an African child is developed most forward because the whole village takes care of the child. The little siblings, the cousins, another mother. And it's not as isolated in such an other culture, such in Asia, where a child gets totally separated, as an example. So these are the 7 capabilities we have to think of to create this collective work where everything has a place. And here again, we can learn from nature. If it's bees, or ants, or birds, or termites, they know that everyone in this system is important and has a role. And they follow different ways. It's not always the same person, right? In birds, when you see a flock of birds and they fly, they change who is leading the front in different occasions. And here it's exactly the same, but only together we can do this. So, bring it to the point again, we need to shift today. You all, we all, the work, how we get together. We need to bring it from profit to impact, and that your success is defined by the significance how you show up. San Francisco, our second home, is creating a lot of shock. And Dag and I were talking about it, how the city of transformation transformed. Everyone is looking right now to Silicon Valley because of technology. But it is a place for many, many, many hundreds of years, a place of transformation. Right? The gold rush, looking for something better. Also, the women's movement, the peace movement, it all established in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. But what we do see right now is the latest picture where the city of San Francisco is planning a 4-level, fully equipped, great technological solutions in it, with a park. Even outside, we have a lot of beautiful nature. And you drive around, and on every corner, you see a tent for homeless people. Is that really what we want, that the most advanced innovation hub is creating? And we see it again and again. The waste from Silicon Valley and San Francisco will swap to Europe, they will swap back to America, and they will swap to Asia. I don't want that. I don't want that. I see millions of homeless people on the street. I was 19 when I moved the first time to California. I had not seen in Germany a homeless people. There are some beggars, but everyone had a home. I was shocked. When I drive now into San Francisco, I'm crying. Because it's really horrible to see that teachers, nurses, people in the shop have not even the chance to live in this city. It's the most expensive city today, more expensive than Shanghai or New York. So for the future, bring it back to the kids. Whatever you do, let's create An environment which is not just seamless and smart, but also healthy. And I ask you to put every decision into the right hands as an evolutionary leader so we can all thrive in the future and in the long future for our next generation. Thank you.
Oh, I like that a few of you responded, so that was good. One thing I want to say right away, I don't have any slides, so we're just going to be talking. Oh, I can have an applause. It's funny, as I was getting ready to come to Belgrade, I suddenly found myself having memories of my childhood. I was born in Germany, and I now live in Miami, Florida, but I spent part of my childhood living in Ankara, Turkey. And every year, my mom and dad and I would drive back home to visit my grandmother. And the first stop was always somewhere between Belgrade and Zagreb. So this is what I remember as a little child. In the back of our old Ford car, I just remember rows and rows of trees going by my car window. I remember seeing like fields everywhere next to the road. And I have very vivid impressions of the different hotels room we stayed in. Now the reason I'm telling you this right now, because I arrived here on Monday in Belgrade, and nothing looked like the imprint that I had from my childhood. I arrived in what I consider the new Belgrade. And I was thinking about the conference and what we're doing here, because every one of us in this room, we have imprints about work, don't we? We have imprints about what we like about work, what we can't stand about work, what we like to be different about work. And my relationship to this conference is that this is about creating a new imprint for work, and for what work could be. I love that this conference is called Agile Humans, and I want to emphasize the word humans. Like some of you, I've also been thinking about what's going to happen to this world when we have more artificial intelligence and robots, and all of us are working in an increasingly digital environment. Some people I know are freaking out about that. Now, 20 years ago, I got a job as a trainer for a large international training and seminar company. 20 years ago, that industry was freaking out. This was the end of the first decade of doing internet and virtual business. And the idea of going to meetings and have seminars in person just seemed like it was going to die. It was going to be extinct. We didn't think it was going to last. That, of course, is not what happened. I believe that the yearning for the human way of doing business is stronger than all the other forces. I believe, however, that all of us in the future need to do human a little better, as some of the tasks that we do well now get taken away by machines and robots. Human needs to be done differently. We need to show up differently, which is why I love the Agile Humans conversation. Jack Ma, the fearless leader of the Alibaba empire in China that I'm sure many of you have heard of, gave a wonderful talk this year at the Davos Economic Forum where he talked about future leaders. And this is what he said. If you want to be a successful leader, you should have a very high EQ. If you don't want to lose too quickly, you better have a high IQ. But if you want to be respected, you better have LQ. LQ is the Q of love. And then he elaborated. He said most men have a pretty high IQ. They have a tiny, 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 tiny EQ. And they have virtually no LQ. Now the funny thing is, when I heard Jack Ma, I immediately Googled LQ. and I found nothing. Jack Ma made this up. Now, I love that because I think Jack Ma knows exactly what he's talking about. So allow me to elaborate a little bit on what I mean by LQ. LQ means I am able to feel love for others, not just think it, feel it. I'm able to express this love and receive love in return. I'm able to create spaces where this love is honored and experienced for a cause and for other human beings. And it means that I create an environment where we implicitly or explicitly agree that love is the ultimate animating force in the world. Now by now you might be thinking, this guy has lost his mind. This sounds like a little too California mumbo jumbo. Now funny thing is, remember LQ was created by Jack Ma, a very non-touchy-feely CEO from China. I think of the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle earlier this year in England. In the United States where I live, this was shown on television. And Bishop Michael Curry stunned the very traditional audience with his impassioned sermon about the transformative power of love. And he wasn't just talking about romantic love. Love, Curry said, and I'm quoting, has the power to change the world. Imagine governments and nations where love is the way. Imagine business and commerce where love is the way. End of quote. This was Curry, not me. So just imagine business and commerce where love is the way. When I grew up as a little boy in Germany, the word love was never mentioned in relationship to anything. It actually was not part of our vocabulary. Now, there have been wonderful generational changes in my country, but if we don't even have a word that we can use or we know what the meaning or feeling of it is, we have a challenge. It starts with personal leadership. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson is one of the leading positive psychologists in the world. She wrote this wonderful book that I adore called Love 2.0. In this book, she deconstructs the notion of love and takes all the romantic connotations from it. So Fredrickson talks about creating small, everyday moments of love in every part of our life, personal and work. She calls them micro moments of love. In micro moments of love, these are moments where we feel deeply connected to one or more people. In micro moments of love, Fredrickson says, our own positivity, our warmth, and our openness evoke and are simultaneously evoked by the warmth and openness of other people. So here's how a neuroscientist explains this. Yuri Hassan is a professor at Princeton University. He does research on how two brains between two people get into sync, which is really cool in every part of business, but certainly like in any part of business. He calls the process of two brains getting in sync neural coupling, like playing the term neural coupling. He found in his research that the part of the brain that most strongly supports neural coupling is the insula, which is a part of the brain that's associated with conscious feeling states. In other words, if you and I want to get more in sync, just having the same thought or the same idea or believing the same thing is not enough. In sync happens is when my emotion meets your emotion. When my joy meets your joy, joy is magnified. When my love of others meets your love of others, a micro moment of love is born. And I want to stress this because micro moments of love are not just a lucky accident. They're intentionally created, and leaders of the future know how to create them. I just sold an international training and coaching company that I had founded and owned for 14 years. Here's a conversation I had with my team pretty much once a year when we would meet in our annual retreats. Here's what I would say is, we're really good at what we do. There are other companies who do similar work to what we do, and they're also really good at what they do. Then I would elaborate is, people hire us for a specific service, but what they get from us is the gift of love. That's why they call us back. Now, this love thing was never mentioned on our website, right? This was our secret sauce, or I want to use the word subtext. In my first career, many, many years ago, I was a professional acting coach in New York, and I trained actors at some of the big acting schools in the city. Any actor can learn the lines of a script. The real homework that actors do is they flesh out what goes on behind the words. Actors call it finding the subtext. Yes, some actors are more talented than others, but the great actors always have greater subtext. So love is a really, really, really great subtext. Our clients loved our company. Not just liked it, they loved us. I did no advertising, the phone just rang. Now, when I worked with my team, there are two specific behaviors that I encouraged. And these are two behaviors that, to the best of my ability, I try to practice myself. One is, we're fun. The second one is, we drill down. Now, let me explain the we're fun part. We're fun means we approach work and business in a light and playful manner. We take what we do very seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. We approach important decisions with a light touch. In an environment where too many people are stressed out and driven by perfectionism, the ability to show up in a light way is actually a profound gift to other people. And I consider that at the deepest level an act of love. Now, the drilling down part, drilling down means I have the courage to explore everything I'm looking at as deeply as possible. I don't stay on the surface. I have the desire to dig deep. I encourage the difficult conversations. I take actions in that manner. I care enough to have those conversations, and I also care enough to know when to let go. And that also, in my mind, is an act of love. So, drilling down, having fun, you combine those two, to me, that's mega love in action. Now, I just had a conversation with my friend Virginia. She lives in Geneva, Switzerland. And she said to me, I have a client that just really pissed me off. He didn't show up for an appointment, and this is the second time he's done that. And I told him how I felt about his behavior, and then I said to him, it's a good thing that I love you. I love this story, and I love the fact that Virginia used the word love. There's power in just saying it. So there's power in just using the word. Now, here are a couple of stories from the road. Earlier this year, I was visiting the corporate headquarters of a big American insurance company in Atlanta, Georgia. And the senior VP of Human Resources, Melissa, was talking to a bunch of senior leaders, and she was rolling out a new initiative to foster stronger engagement. And she called it Moments That Matter. And Moments That Matter meant these are moments when we do something nice, where we smile, we do something unexpected that goes beyond what we're normally supposed to do. I appreciated what she was doing, but LQ is about a lot more than smiling and acting nice. So I wanted something a lot bolder from her. In March, I had the pleasure of hosting a panel discussion in Mexico with 3 CEOs from Latin American companies. 2 were from Colombia and 1 was from Mexico. They spoke about creating happier workplaces. Nobody spoke about workplace engagement. There was no human resources jargon. Nobody spoke about purpose and some of the other stuff we like to talk about in the West. Instead, all 3 said is, we get our employees together and we create vision boards. And on the vision boards, people write and paint their dreams, the visions, the hopes that they have for their lives. These dreams don't have to do necessarily with the job they're doing here. This is about dreams about more education, about travel, happiness with a family. And then he says, we do what we can to provide resources to help them attain these dreams. To me, that's love in action. In my own professional life, I host virtual mastermind groups for successful executives from all over the world. So what we do, 7 people get together and we challenge each other, we hold each other accountable, and we're committed to bringing out the very best in each other. We share tactics, we share resources, and we share wisdom. We energize each other. We dare each other to play a bolder game in every aspect of life. But at the deepest level, a mastermind, for me, is an exceptional act of love. I think Jack Ma is right. For us to be successful, we need to have lots of EQ. We need to have IQ and be really smart. And we need to have lots and lots and lots of LQ. Now, you may have taken some psychological tests that say, well, you're just not that kind of a person, right? Or you may come from a country or culture where business behavior is crisp and cool and professional. You know what? Dump the story of who you think you are. See yourself as a global citizen. Work is love made visible. That's a quote by the great Turkish poet Rumi. Let me repeat that. Work is love made visible. We live in a world that needs a little more love. It starts with how you and I meet and encounter each other every single day in every aspect of our life. So I invite you to do this together. I urge you to have a strong subtext. I invite you to create many, many, many moments of love. And let's do this already, okay? Thank you.
Now I will tell you that no one knew I was going to do this, except one person in this room, and it's not just me. And I want to start this, it says why now, but I want to say why here, why in Serbia. And I want you to invite you to join me in a story about how what's happening here has happened. In 2010, that's when I was first invited to Scrum Alliance conference. I didn't know what Scrum was. I didn't know what Agile was. All I knew is that there's this very special gentleman who originated open space technology in the world, which is in 145 countries plus, and he was facilitating a full day of open space at this conference that Tobias was overseeing. It was a 3-day conference. So I went there and I was invited to attend the full 3 days. I was told that I would need to meet this one person by the name of Tobias. 350 people, I didn't know anyone. So I got there a little nervous because Harrison for me was what Tobias is for Jazz when he changed her life. So I got into this room and there's a guy that's sitting there, and I had my lunch. Everybody else is everywhere, and I sit down and I say, "Can I eat here?" Oops, sorry, did I do it? Oh, that's okay. It's gonna. I get excited and I lean against stuff. So just we'll reiterate and adjust. So anyway, I went in there and I said, we talked, and it was Tobias, and I said, "Wow, that's amazing," and that was my first encounter. Then Tobias told me where to go for the next sessions. And this is what I noticed. There were other conferences in this very big hotel. And it was like people a little bit sitting like you, I'm sorry, but I love you all, but we're still not moving in action. But at this conference, this is what I saw. You know, and you can read the list. But people were so engaged. The topics were so amazing, and they were racing around everywhere. And I couldn't tell if someone's a boss, someone's this, someone's that. And they were super, super friendly. And wow, there's something happening in technology that I hadn't noticed. But I sure was noticing it there. And then we had the open space, and it was wonderful. And I got up at 5 in the morning after our open space. And I wrote a letter to Tobias. And I said, the personal and collective leadership I saw here goes so far beyond the scope of systems application, system implementation, and project management work typical of many who work in your field. People here are modeling the new leadership with passion in their gut. They understand in a very holistic way that human dynamics are an integral part of what creates success. These were my exact words at 5 in the morning to Tobias. And this presentation is a love note to Serbia. It's a love note to the technology people that have been doing some pretty good stuff. Now, what Tobias did with my little personal note is it got published in the InfoQ Technology magazine, to my big surprise. And we called it, you know, the 2010 US Scrum Gathering, the Aftershocks. Then he hired me to go facilitate the first in the world Scrum Beyond Software conference with 50 trailblazing, pioneering people. And it was the first time that had been done. I was kind of nervous again because I was kind of new in this stuff, but I really passionately believed we needed to take our technology, and we had all these people. So you might recognize some faces there. Jasmina was doing the big banner that we had, Scrum Beyond Software, and when I walked in the room, I didn't know anyone, only knew Tobias again. She's sitting there, you know Jasmina? I thought she's one of the organizers. No, she became one of my best friends in life. And then we can see Tobias in the middle. So that's where Scrum Beyond Software, and I will contend, it's where Agile Humans, this seed that this lady is pursuing, started, and we're all connected. Yes, we've all heard about VUCA today. VUCA world, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, it's not going away. And there's this gentleman, if you've never heard of him, he has written The Age of Agile, has about 700 articles in Forbes magazine that has been writing over time, that he makes the case for the great possibilities of technology, Scrum, Agile, beyond software. And he emphasizes that it requires new Agile mindsets. We're hearing about principles, but I'm going to be talking a bit about practices here. So, when I heard Doug, I heard Tobias talk about principles. Well, we've heard about the Agile Manifesto, and Tobias is right. There's a lot of work happening before 2001 when 17 very trailblazing people in the technology community got together. However, something that they did there, and I think it's at the origin of Agile Humans, this manifesto represents very deep-seated principles. They met to talk about, you know, to ski and do all that, and then they came out with this, the spirit, and I call it and the practice of Agile, because it is two things. But there's important messages here that say it's individuals and interactions. That's us. That's our conversations. That's how we interact with each other. Over process and tools. Working product. The result that we give to our clients, to whoever we're serving. Over the documentation and all the busyness that we do. You know, customer collaboration, responding to change. This document is still as vibrantly alive as it ever was. It is the principles that we're talking about. And I think it's at the essence of human agiles too.
Because I come from manufacturing, where we did Lean Six Sigma, we did re-engineering, we did ISO, we did downsizing, we did right-sizing, we have better efficiency, we got better cost, we got really smart. But you know what? I look at this and I think we forgot the humans in that. We were really quick to downsize and outsource. And where were the humans? And now in a VUCA world, where we're looking at artificial intelligence, robotics, cobotics, machine learning, a whole bunch of stuff, we are going to be automating all the mechanical tasks that people are doing, and we're going to need new ways of approaching work that tap into the true potential, the creativity of all of us. So we kind of have to relearn how to work. I mean, we only have one life. Are we going to go home because our mechanical tasks aren't there? No. And I mean, we need to partner with these technologies, use them with us. So, I think this Agile Manifesto is really important. And Tobias talked about values, courage, focus, commitment, respect, openness. Those are the Scrum values. But what are our values when we're going to work? And let's get clear about those values before we start. And this year, when I say this is a testament to the technology people, well, what I forgot to mention with those 17 people that got together, you probably remember large system changes in the 90s. I remember. Here's how it worked. We are going to bring finance, operations, engineering, all this together, all the data. They get all the information. It takes, they say it's going to take 2 or 3 years. Sometimes it takes 4. It's always past deadline. It's always over budget. Typically, the person that was hired to run this got fired, and they brought in a SWAT team to fix it. And at the end, 80% of what got installed isn't getting used. And sometimes even, you get the latest version in your company, but you discover that it's 2 versions late. That's why 17 people got together, and they decided we need to do work differently. And that was in 2001, but they had done the work before. So, we have a lot to learn from technology. They have been experimenting. They have been working very hard on this and iterating, and I'll get into a few things that they've been doing. And we're not starting at ground zero. And this is an invitation to partner with the people that are in our own companies that we may not know. They may be introverts and outliers, like I described them, but they have some really cool stuff to share. So Agile is a vibrantly active worldwide community. There's hundreds of thousands of them out there. And I have talked to CEOs and others when I'm talking to them, and I say, hey, go check in your company. And they have. And you're right, they're doing Scrum and Agile, and they had no clue. So, and here are some. These were my buddies. It's called Buddy Up, so you might recognize the lady in the middle. These other people come from different parts of the world. They are amazing. They're my friends. They're my colleagues. When I started talking about this stuff, I said, oh, I don't know enough to have the right because I'm not a technology person. They said, go. But now I have new buddies. I met them yesterday and the day before. If they're in the room, would they please raise their hand?
Yeah.
So these are our new certified Scrum Masters. Let's give them a little clap. As we do this, and this is my biggest buddy of all, because that's why we're all here, but he's written this book called This People Scrum, and he says it works best if they're embraced by those doing the work and is adapted in the context of that work, but if we push it, if we impose it, there's no way it's going to go anywhere. So it's invitation, folks. Like, what I fear is that leaders are going to stay, because those are the statistics. 90% of business leaders now in companies want to be agile. Only less than 10% are doing it, and half the people don't even know what it's about. So you know how it's from the mountain, we want me to do this, so go do that? No, we need to do this together. And what does that look like? And I've just put some things there that I want to say to you. This is an invitation to invite everyone to the grown-up table of strategy. Let's not leave us at the kiddie table. And we all deserve to be part of the grown-up table. And we're going to talk about important things like eliminating waste and productivity. We're in business. We want to succeed, not just a few of us, all of us. And it's a matter of head and heart. It's a matter of spirit and practice. Now, I'll just go through this very quickly, but it's one of the most important slides, I think, in the whole deck, that this waterfall method is how we operate our traditional companies. We want to know where we're going to get to before we even start, when we have the least amount of information. We hand off, as Tobias has described, we hand off from one person to the next and we wait. And this whole model, which used to be the model of most companies in technology, is not working. And I don't want to get into the big detail of this because this is the whole wonderful world of Scrum. But I can tell you what it invites. It invites those closest to the work to have the opportunity to choose and see how the work gets done. It invites people to review, to adjust, to deliver the products that the customer wants. It's self-organized. There's many times where customers and stakeholders are talking with each other. It doesn't only happen at the beginning. And we bring the different functions together. Life becomes more vibrant and alive. And you can see that we are delivering in 1 to 3 weeks. Now they're doing that in technology. So we're shortening. But, Tobias showed, we can put, those little red blocks and deliver something. So this is about delivering business value fast, making mistakes fast, fixing it fast, and getting better at it, and delivering more and more, and having that great drive of having delivered good products. I also hear from everyone, Scrum, that is so prescriptive. And they've got all these words that we don't understand. And really, that's not how work should be. Well, I'm going to summarize this to just say, I think we need a new language on how we talk about teams, how we talk about results, how we talk about a whole ton of things. Because the words we have them, but they're not working. And the technology crew have been doing some awfully good work. And yes, it maybe involves a new language for us to learn together, but it's going to take us back to our roots, because behind each of these words are tons of conversation, tons of transparency, tons of results. And I want to honor them for that. Really, it's a Scrum framework that we can say, hey, here's what we're doing that's working, and then you tell us from the business side what we don't know. So that's my point about this new toolbox. And I'll tell you something, and I've done this with executives, and I say to them, because they're a little nervous. Executives, they're supposed to know it all, so they're more nervous than you guys, I'm telling you. They're really nervous. And they don't like to not know. And at the end of the day, I say, not only will you know these words, you will have experienced a lot of them and you'll get it. And you should see them, they're like little kids, they're so proud of what they learn. So it's not a big deal. Okay, a lot of people say, and I'm almost done, I've used this with clients. So the top story is a hotel that was losing cash. So we invited everyone to the strategy of the company, including the head of housekeeping and the head of maintenance. So the head of housekeeping was the biggest, best leader I ever saw. So that company that was losing cash within a year was making $1 million. Within 2 years, they were making $2 million. Why? Because we used a combination of open space technology, some simple things, and some Scrum adaptation to get them started, because this is a journey. The next one is created a national organization in the packaging industry, 7 people that believe that people need to be better equipped on training on AI, robotics, all this. So they said our companies aren't paying us to get trained enough and we're going to be just messed up. So let's do it ourselves. And in less than a year, we created a national, visible website, meetings, everything. 7 people can do a lot. Ordinary people, round up. Motivation. Danielle Pink is really well known for talking about motivation. It needs 3 things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Well, Agile and Scrum, and combining us all together gives us autonomy. It gives us the chance to perfect our jobs and get better and be proud. And it certainly has purpose attached to it. So my invitation is, it's time for a bigger sandbox. Time to invite, time to involve, time to include, time to engage, and time to experiment, to fail, and to succeed. And we need to leverage self-management, leverage the technology community, like all get together in this and play and have fun. And I say let's grow the spirit of Agile. Jasmina, and that's where I met Akim. So if you let go of control, you discover friends appear in your midst, and here we are on the stage, and it all happened like that. So this is where I met Akim, at an open space of Agile. And my last slide is happiness at work and in life. Why am I in this? These are my 2 grandkids. And I do not want them to have a miserable life. And the 2 pictures beside are the pictures of the students in Belgrade that I took when I came here 5 years ago. They're all over your city. The campuses are all over the city. They're blended everywhere. And all of them that I've met, they're hungry for a much better world than the one we're offering. So, party's on. Will you join us? That's it. I hope I didn't go over my minutes, but I love you guys.
Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. VUCA. We all live in a VUCA world. So we have lots of things happening. We've got blockchain, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, robotics, nanotechnology, genetic engineering. A lot of stuff going on. It feels very disconcerting. But before we feel like we're too special or too precious, we need to understand we've always lived in a VUCA world. We have never not lived in a VUCA world, and we will never not live in a VUCA world. In the Middle Ages, there was a terrible plague, the Black Plague. It wiped out 30 to 60% of the population of Europe, including right here in present-day Serbia. It took another 200 years for the world population to recover from the Black Plague. And when people were treating the people with the Black Plague, they created mountains of rags and cloths that were used to bathe and wash and treat the sick. Then we fast forward to the year 1439, something very interesting happened. Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable press. And we created literature, printable literature, for the first time in human history. And that printing press enabled us to create Bibles and books, pamphlets and literature. And somebody looked at those mountains of rags and they said, you know what, we can recycle those mountains of rags and turn them into paper for Gutenberg's printing press. And that printing press catalyzed the greatest movement the world had ever seen. Art, literature, music, science, the Renaissance. We have never not lived in a VUCA world, and we will never not live in a VUCA world. But with all this change happening, our organization's positioned to help us navigate the change. As far as the eye can see, we have command and control. We have rigid hierarchical bureaucracies controlling the organizations in which we live and work. Is that really working for us? Is it really serving us? Well, we should probably ask some really fundamental questions. One of those questions is, can people manage themselves? How many people here think people can manage themselves? Okay, many, not all. Let's take a look at a little video and see what self-management might look like. This is obviously VUCA occurring everywhere at all times. And here's the video. We have sound.
And it doesn't make any sense. Well, here's one roundabout that actually deserves the title, even if it doesn't get it. Your first thought upon seeing Swindon's magic roundabout might be, man, the Brits are really off their rockers lately. But this thing, which is actually 7 roundabouts in one, has been working for 60 years. In a regular roundabout, traffic moves in one direction. In Swindon Circle, cars move both ways. Also, drivers can move from point A to point B without having to drive all the way around the circle. But they do have the option to use different routes to get to the same exit in order to avoid traffic. It may look chaotic, but it's actually pretty efficient because it means less fighting for space. You just point your vehicle toward where you want to go, yield to cars already in the midst of the magic, then Brexit on the other side. Many Americans may hate roundabouts, but they can actually cut serious crashes by 30%. Swindon says its roundabout has only seen one fatal crash in the past 5 years. So to celebrate a town anniversary, they paraded over 60 vintage cars through this feat of traffic engineering. Is this madness? Nope, it's Swindon.
How many people think people can manage themselves? Not only is there less pollution and fewer traffic accidents in a roundabout, but the throughput of traffic is 13 to 89% higher than a traditional traffic stop. Incredibly productive. Very simple, self-management. 2 simple rules in a roundabout. Number 1, yield to the cars that are already in the roundabout. And number 2, just stay in the right lane for your exit. That's it. 2 simple rules. People are managing complexity with great simplicity. Does anyone know what this is? Besides people that have seen me talk before. So if you guessed this was 2 bent lines, you'd be absolutely correct, but they're very special bent lines. These 2 bent lines, if they're encoded with the right genetic material, embody the entire genetic structure of a fern. And this shape occurs at every degree of magnification inside a fern. It's called a fractal. No matter where you look, in a single fern or a forest of ferns, you're going to see the same 2 bent lines. And it's very interesting, whether a fern becomes a single tiny leaf or a frond or an entire forest primeval of ferns depends on its ecosystem, on its environment, the moisture in the soil, the degree of sunlight, the nutrients in the soil. It's the same thing for human organizations. And the great thing about the natural world is it calls out great questions for us. And it asks us great questions about how we organize and work with each other and collaborate. So here are some questions. Can we create organizations where every single human being has a voice in matters that affect them? Can we create organizations where women don't have to lean in because they're already in? Can we create organizations where people are free to thrive and do their best work and be happy? Where leadership and innovation exist everywhere, at every degree of magnification, just like a fractal? Can we create organizations that are completely agile and flexible and highly adapted to the VUCA world that we will always live in? And we manage great complexity with simplicity. We out-VUCA the VUCA world. I like to think the answer is yes. The fern is based on 2 bent lines. A roundabout is based on 2 simple rules. In the spring of 1990, there was a young entrepreneur in Northern California, his name was Chris Rupert, and he pulled together a little core team of colleagues to build a state-of-the-art food processing factory. And I joined his team. That's the reason I know about it. I was the financial controller. And we had a small core team of 24 people. We were working out of a tiny little farmhouse in the dusty Central Valley in Northern California, building this state-of-the-art food factory. And one day our founder came into the farmhouse and said, I'd like to have a meeting and talk about how to organize and how to collaborate. We said, sure, that's great. So we all got together at night in a construction trailer on the job site, and we sat around in a circle on steel folding chairs, and he passed around a document called the Morning Star Team Principles. They boil down to two things. Just like a fern, just like a roundabout. Two principles. Number one, human beings should not use force or coercion against other human beings. What a concept. It's the foundation of all law everywhere in the world. Every law against assault and battery and theft and burglary and kidnapping and murder and all the rest is predicated on the principle that people should not use force against other human beings. And the second principle, people should keep the commitments they make to each other. What a concept. It's the foundation of contract law. We wouldn't be able to transact business anywhere in the world. We couldn't rely on people doing what they say they're going to do. So we sat around, the 24 of us, we sat around, debated, discussed, and talked about these two principles. At the end of the evening, we looked at each other and said, we can't think of any reason not to adopt these principles. They make perfect sense. And so we did. And we walked out into the night air as a self-managed enterprise. So we had a lot of work to do. This was March of 1990. We had an entire factory to build. We had thousands of hectares of tomatoes coming up out of the ground, up and down the state of California. We had vital equipment arriving on ocean cargo freighters from Italy. We had hundreds of contractors on the job site, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constructing, welding, and fabricating. We had to hire hundreds of people to operate the factory and drive the trucks. And finally, on July 16th of 1990, we threw the switch. We produced 44 million kilograms of industrial tomato concentrate for the world market, and we changed the entire cost structure of the industry virtually overnight, and we did it without a single human boss. No bosses, no titles, no command authority. Human beings collaborating with each other in a network changed the entire industry virtually overnight. The company went on to grow. We built another factory, then another factory. We expanded our operations up and down the supply chain toward customers in remote warehouses across North America, and toward the suppliers in terms of farming and harvesting and transplanting and trucking. We became the largest tomato processor in the world. Everyone in North America has eaten our products. I believe all of you have eaten our products because we export worldwide. And we did it all without a single human boss. Can people manage themselves? How many think so? It's been a kind of an interesting ride. In 2011, 2010, Jerry Hamill, a famous business author, came out and spent a day with us, ended up writing an article about us. We were on the cover of the Harvard Business Review. We were described as the world's most creatively managed company. And we created an institute, Self-Management Institute, to promote the ideas of self-management to anyone that's interested. How does all this work? I would say the very first thing is start with principle. Everybody wants to jump right to practices and tools and systems and ideas and different things to do. We believe it's important to start with principle. Now, if you don't believe that people should not use force, and if you don't believe people should keep commitments to each other, okay, come up with your own principles. Come up with better principles. That's fine. We think the two core principles are the most fundamental principles of human interaction. They are to human interaction what gravity is to physics. Imagine a world where everyone aligned with the principle of not using force. You wouldn't need armies or navies or police or locks on your doors. Now we know that's not reality, but that's not the point. The point is, the closer you approach that ideal state, the better off you are as a human being, the more happiness and harmony and prosperity you can experience as an individual and in an organization. Imagine a world where everyone kept the commitments they make to each other. What an amazing world that would be. We know that's not reality, but again, that's not the point. The point is, we're better off when people keep their commitments to each other. When people demonstrate integrity by keeping their commitments, when you can go to a store and count on that store having the item you want 100% of the time, that has economic value. And it does not waste human life. But if you have better principles than those, that's fine. You should adopt them, put a stake in the ground, believe in them, and embrace them, and live them. Own them. It's important to start with principle. And it starts with the individual. You can't cure cancer unless you get down to the cellular level, to the molecular level. You have to get down to the basics, and that's where principles exist. Start with principles. And then we see human beings as the ultimate reality. Teams are concepts. Organizations are concepts. Companies are concepts. Countries are concepts. Human beings are the only thing that's real. Only human beings can make decisions. Only human beings can take actions. Self-management is about ultimate respect for the individual human being and the voice of each and every person. You got to align with technological and social drivers. I already mentioned technology, but let me ask you a question. How many millennials want to work for other people for pay and feel inspired by that? That's a literal definition of the word employee. In the United States, industry after industry is being disrupted because millennials will not stay in a job more than 12 months if they don't feel engaged and if they don't feel respected. They will leave. Organizations have got to figure out how to engage hearts and minds and align with those hearts and minds. You got to start with principle. It's about managing enormous complexity with great simplicity. Morningstar has 5,000 or so employees. 4,500 of those are seasonal employees. They only work 3 months out of the year. The engagement level is sky high. We've had years at factories where we have a 100% return rate of seasonal employees from 1 year to the next where they've been laid off for 9 months. Because they love the ecosystem, they love the environment, they love their fellow colleagues, they want to come back year after year after year. That level of engagement is possible, even in a sprawling agriculture industry. How many have heard of the management tax? Gary Hamel wrote about the management tax. I encourage you to look at his HBR article. Management tax is very interesting. Imagine, if you will, a traditional organization. The average span of management control in the United States, and probably worldwide, is at least 1 to 10. That means for every 10 workers, there's usually one manager responsible for the 10 workers. So imagine a startup where we have 10 workers making, say, $30,000 per year each. They probably have one manager making 3 times as much as that, because managers always make more than the people they manage. Here's the promise of self-management. Self-management recognizes each of those 10 workers is a manager already in his or her own personal life. Every one of us is a manager. No boss tells us who to date, who to marry, where to go to college, what to do for a living, where to live, whether to have children, whether to buy a car. Somehow we make all these giant life-altering decisions on our own without a boss. Yet when we walk into the workplace, suddenly we're too stupid to do anything without a boss. Why is that? We're all managers already in our own personal lives. So we can take these 10 workers, we can amplify their existing management skills, give them some commercial management skills, And management, by the way, is not rocket science at its basic level. It's planning, organizing, controlling, selecting, and coordinating. Planning is strategy. Organizing is leadership. Controlling is budgeting. Selecting is hiring and firing. Coordinating is teamwork. We can amplify these skills, give each one of these 10 workers a $5,000 a year raise, and we don't need the manager. And we've just saved ourselves $40,000 a year. And if this company grows by a factor of 10, so we have 100 workers, how many managers do we need? We need 11. Because once we have 10 managers, the 10 managers need a manager. And that person probably makes $200,000 a year. We can amplify the management skills of the 100 workers. We don't need the 10 managers. We don't need the manager of the 10 managers. And we've just saved ourselves $600,000 a year. If you project out 10 years, the net present value of that is about $3.5 million. All other things being equal, if you have one competitor that figures out how to slash the management tax and one doesn't, which competitor is going to win? But it's much more than a question of economics. When you slow people down and bog them down in bureaucracy, you are literally wasting parts of their life. You are wasting human life. Gary Hamel estimates we can save $3 trillion a year in the U.S. by slashing the management tax. That's 1/6 of the entire economy in the U.S. So there are some corollaries to this. One of them is that there is zero command authority. This is kind of interesting. Zero means zero. So when I say that I'm embracing the principle of not using force, it means I have no authority to tell anyone else what to do. I can make a request, I can ask, but I can't tell anyone else what to do. And no one has any unilateral authority to fire anyone. I can ask, but I can't fire anyone, and I can't tell anyone what to do. Interesting thing about this is it leads to natural leadership. Natural leadership is superior to traditional command and control leadership. Command authority causes leadership muscles to atrophy, to get weaker. Command authority creates weaker leaders. When I have to earn the mantle of leadership through trust, respect, and communication, I am a much stronger leader. Self-management, the absence of command authority, creates much stronger leadership. The interesting thing about a self-managed ecosystem is everyone can be a leader. Leadership revolves depending on the problem or the issue or the project and the expertise of the individuals involved. Everyone can lead, everyone can innovate. We had a maintenance mechanic who walked around, he theorized a better way to handle chemicals. He sketched out an engineering design, found some financing, created a project, saved millions of dollars in 90 days. Those opportunities are available to everyone, and they occur frequently. And we gamify work. Work is play. When you don't have a boss walking around telling you if you're doing a good job or not, you have to be able to tell yourself. You have to have scorecards. You have to be able to play the game of work. And we try to make work fun. Try to make it enjoyable. That's why people come back every year. We believe in total responsibility. So I'm responsible for everything that comes into my scope of awareness. If I'm done with a shift, I'm walking out to my car in the parking lot, I can't wait to get home, but I see a fire starting in the warehouse, I own that problem. I own it. And I have to deal with it myself, or I have to have someone else deal with it. But it's not okay for me to leave and ignore the problem and say, well, it's not my area, I'll let somebody else worry about it. Not okay. We believe in true competition. The Latin root word for competition is competere. It doesn't mean fighting or winning or beating up on the other guy. It means seeking together and learning together. We wanted to create a massive learning organization where people are constantly learning from each other how to do things better and get better. We believe in radical commitment making and commitment keeping. The entire enterprise runs on commitments. Recall, that's one of the 2 core principles of self-management, keeping commitments. Commitments are sacred. If you say you will do something, you are expected to do it, or renegotiate the commitment. You must follow through on commitments. How do we instantiate all this stuff? Well, we decided we would establish contracts between peers. We called it a colleague letter of understanding. It's very simple. It starts with why. What is your meaning at this enterprise? What is your purpose at this enterprise? Why are you here? What does excellence look like in your role? How does what you do support the overall mission of the enterprise? If it takes you 6 months to figure that out, that's fine. We want you to come up with what we call a personal commercial mission statement that resonates with you and your colleagues so everyone knows your why. And once we have your why, we need to figure out the what. What are the processes for which you agree to be fully accountable? What do you do when you come to work? What are you responsible for executing? So we have the why and the what. Then we get down into some details. What is the scope and quantum of your decision-making authority with respect to each of the processes for which you agree to be accountable? What is it? Are you the decision-maker for a process? Are you merely making recommendations to another decision-maker for a process? Are you able to make decisions but need to receive recommendations before making decisions? You just make decisions when the regular decision maker is on vacation? What is it? It's about accountability, it's about clarity, and it's about transparency. We want you to be very, very clear. And we call our measures, our scorecards, our KPIs, we call them stepping stones because we consider them stepping stones toward perfection. We don't benchmark other companies, other industries, other sectors. We benchmark perfection. Perfection for a cost metric is 0. Perfection for an efficiency metric is 100%. We think this liberates blue sky innovation. If I'm thinking about how to eliminate an entire category of cost, I'm going to be much more innovative. And those things happen. We have very disruptive changes, like the mechanic I mentioned, who completely disrupted the system for handling chemicals, saving millions of dollars. Stepping stones toward perfection. Lest you think Morningstar is this weird, funky tomato company that's so wild and radical nobody could ever duplicate it, I would like to suggest to you that I believe we're in a Cambrian explosion of self-managed companies all around the world. Freshville is a company that's in the same town as Morningstar that I recently worked with, starting this year as a startup. It's massively disrupting the convenience store industry in the United States. I don't know what convenience stores are like in Serbia, but in the United States, they're generally dingy with crowded aisles, bad coffee, stale donuts, dirty bathrooms, the whole bit. It's not a pleasant experience. Freshville has totally inverted that model. So they have a gleaming white store with wide, spacious aisles. They have a raw, natural juice bar, a fruit and vegetable stand, a craft beer cave, solar power, sparkling bathrooms, electric car charging. It's a completely different, disruptive model. They elected to be completely self-managed. And when you go in and talk to the clerk behind the counter at Freshville and ask them, who is your boss? They will say, I am the boss. and Freshville employees are paid more than the competitors' employees because they do not pay the management tax. They make more money because they're all managers, every one of them. Haier is the world's largest appliance manufacturer based in Qingdao, China. I've been there twice. Their visionary CEO, Chairman Zhang Ruimin, took a global company of 70,000 employees and created 4,000 self-managed teams, each of which is an innovation platform. And if they develop a new idea for a product or service, they can apply for financing. And if they develop a company from their idea, they can spin it off into their own company. And right now, Haier's created companies in video games, cattle ranching, and healthcare. They're creating unicorns. They just bought General Electric Appliances in Louisville, Kentucky, and they're introducing their system there. I believe the competition of Haier is scared, and they should be scared. This is a completely disruptive model of self-management. And they came to Morningstar, and we've spent time exchanging lots of ideas with them. Self-management is completely congruent with Agile. I won't read these, you can read them for yourselves, but if you look down all the different principles of Agile and the principles of self-management, they are completely congruent. Self-management plays well with almost every business discipline that exists, from lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, TQM, you name it, because it's still management. We still need planning, organizing, controlling, selecting, coordinating. We still need those things. It's still management. But it's completely congruent with Agile. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to, instead of having great, productive, networked, vibrant, agile software teams working underneath oppressive bureaucracies, which happens way too often, what we're trying to get to is the entire organization being a network. We're slashing the cost of bureaucracy. And we're creating ecosystems where we're not wasting human life, where people are free to do their best work. This should be a little video of how our first Morningstar factory came together as we self-organized. We formed connections with each other, naturally. And we executed colleague letters of understanding with each other. And then we modified and renegotiated those as needs changed over time. I'm the turquoise dot in the upper left. It's complete self-organization. People are free to find the people with whom they must connect in order to deliver ultimate value to customers. Completely dynamic system. People exit the ecosystem, they enter the ecosystem, they reconfigure and renegotiate their colleague letters of understanding over time as the needs of the environment change. We took a snapshot once we had developed hundreds of colleague letters of understanding. We took a snapshot of those contracts, and we took it to a computer lab at the University of California. This is the org chart of Morningstar. And if it were a time-lapse movie, it would be in constant motion, just like the video we saw.
Looks like a galaxy.
Yeah. I call it a spider web. Spider silk is 5 times stronger than steel by weight. It's extraordinarily resilient, extraordinarily strong. It catalyzes communication everywhere, at all times. People take actions, they make decisions, fast, without going through multiple permission steps like you would in a regular organization. There's no up or down. There's zero command authority. There's natural leadership and innovation everywhere. So here's the challenge I have for organizations today. If a sprawling, noisy, dusty agribusiness can figure out how to organize 5,000 people in a system that looks like this and grow from zero to become the largest producer in the world in its industry, why would any startup or tech company or manufacturer or bank or any other kind of company want to organize the same way we were organized 150 years ago when information moved by Morse code? Is it time to create the organization of the future where we can out-VUCA the VUCA world? Thank you very much.
On the program, the talk has a different title. It was a different talk, in fact. After some discussion, arriving here and seeing the room and the size of the group, and having done a workshop over the last 2 days, I felt, I don't know why, it's just sort of an intuition thing, that this might be a better topic of conversation. And it turns out that the title aligns very well with the title of the next talk, which is Dag's one. So, so navigating complexity using agility. That's my topic. So we start with the question of what is a system? So when we talk about organisations and the work that we do, we usually refer to them as systems of some kind or other. So what is a system? So we go into just a quick dictionary definition there. A set of connected things or parts forming a complex whole, or a set of principles or procedures according to which something is done. Now, if I had a couple of hours to do this talk, I would turn it over to you at this point in time and ask you to talk among yourselves. But instead, I'm just going to say, hold this question for later. All right, perhaps during the panel it might come up. But there'll be a few questions that appear throughout this, and I want you to give some thought to. The question is, what is not a system? So if you look at those definitions, what is not a system? But we're going to, that wasn't the thing that was expected. Let's try again. So, in thinking about different kinds of systems, various people have, categorized them in different ways. And some of you might be familiar with this picture. It's from a man called Ralph Stacey, when he's looking at the parameters of technology on one side and the requirements on the other. I'm talking about how, when the requirements are well known, technology is well known, you're working in a simple space, and so on. We're not going to look at this. But I found out only a few weeks ago, actually, that Ralph Stacey actually disowns this diagram now. He doesn't promote it, he doesn't believe in it. But there's a newer one, some of you might be familiar with, called Cynefin, which is similar, where you can systems down to obvious, complicated, complex, and chaotic, with disorder in the middle there, where pretty much anything can fall into. And they're useful. They're useful to think about what kind of work is needed to be done, what kind of explorations in each of those spaces. But I want to look at something a little simpler. We're not going to look at those. This way. An alternative way of categorizing systems. It's binary. I like binary. So I said the systems are either mechanical or they're organic, and that's what I'm going to explore today. First of all, we'll look at a little bit of a breakdown of each of these kinds of systems and why I consider them so very different, and there is sort of a hard line. Here's a few pictures of mechanical systems. That's an IKEA plan. You get the idea. And organic systems, on the other hand, look more like these kinds of things. They're all systems. City is a system. Forest is a system. Crowd of people doing their Christmas shopping is a system. Very much a self-organised one, of course. Growing tomatoes. So, we can break this down a little more and say these are some of the qualities of a mechanical system. It is discernible, transparent, objective, has finite elements. It has a known end state. That's probably one of the most important aspects. It has a known end state, deterministic, and it encourages statements of truth, such as that. If this, then that. Predictable. These are mechanical systems. Organic systems, on the other hand, look a little different. And I'll do these side by side in a minute. They are complex, opaque, subjective, non-finite elements, unknown end state, non-deterministic, encourages questions and observations. If this, then what? So instead of saying statements of truth, if this, then that, we can only make guesses, which leads us to experimentation. If this, then what? So we see them side by side. Give you a chance to just take that in. They're pretty much, each of them are opposites of the other. So again, you have lots of time, you'll be talking now. Identify and categorize systems in your workplace. So given this set of criteria for identifying a mechanical system versus a organic system, we can look at some of the procedures and processes and ways of working that we have, how the organisation itself is organised, how people are hired, how they're fired, all the different systems that we use within an organisation, which ones would fall under which category. Now, there's probably some grey area in between, but even within the grey area, you can probably zoom in a bit closer and say, well, this aspect is mechanical and this aspect is organic. So it's an interesting conversation to have, I think, when we sort of like analyse our own systems and how they fit into these ideas. So now we've got these different kinds of systems. What if we want to change the system? So we've got a system running, it's mechanical or it's organic, and we think we can do a better job with it. So we want to change it, influence it, manipulate it, control it in some way, ultimately manage it, right? We want to manage it. What do we do? So mechanical systems, add this. Mechanical systems usually require experts. They require people who really know very deeply an aspect of that system, or maybe more than one aspect of that system. So expertise is very much required here. They benefit from control. You need to be able to control your mechanical systems. And they give great benefit for that. And the last one is it responds to commanding leadership. So, this is the model really of the whole industrial age, building things, repeating, manufacturing stuff. They are, the stuff was all of those things, and they had experts who were able to design these things, they had experts who were able to make the things, and there was a very controlling environment and very commanding management, very hierarchical structures. When software started out, this was our model of working. This is how we work. This is what we knew to be effective. But software is not like manufacturing. It's a totally different ballgame. And we've struggled for decades now with a model of management in the software industry and many other creative industries that really just doesn't work for us. And so the movement towards agility is inevitable. And it didn't start with the Agile Manifesto, it started way before that. People were trying out, experimenting with different ways of running companies and succeeding sometimes and failing other times. But there's plenty of literature that dates back quite a few decades on this. So when we've got our organic systems, these qualities, what do we need to do here? Well, I would argue that it doesn't require experts. Expertise is not something you can have in an ever-changing environment where there's always new technology coming on, new ideas to learn. I can be an expert coder in a particular language, but I'm not going to be much of an expert if nobody uses that language anymore. So there's a continuous process of learning, and what we're looking for in people is this idea of being an artisan rather than an engineer. These systems benefit from release. I don't mean releasing the software, I mean letting go of control. So in the previous one, it benefits from control. Organic systems do not. They do not benefit from control. They benefit by management being able to release and let go and trust and allow people doing the work to do the work. And they respond not to commands, but they respond to guidance and nurturing. So we're looking for people in the leadership roles now to be more like gardeners, creating the soil that the organisation and the products they're making can grow. So those are some central differences, and again we can see them side by side there. So the next question, I think there's another question, yeah, would be once you've kind of taken a look at some of the systems you have in your organisation, you can answer the question, how are we managing those systems? Are we using mechanical methods to manage organic systems? Or are we really using organic methods to manage these organic systems? So when you've got hierarchical structures of managers telling other people what to do and how to do it sometimes, you're using a mechanical process which would work really well in the right environment, but doesn't work well when you're doing creative products. So software for me falls into, it's not engineering. So we've got this, it's a metaphor that we borrowed really. It's software is like building bridges or it's like architecting houses. It's not like any of those things at all. It's more like painting a picture or making a sculpture or something. I don't quite know where we're going with it. A little bit more metaphor later. So organic systems are complex. If we go back to the Stacey diagram and Snowden's Kinefin diagram, they fall into the complex space. Always. The organic systems are always complex. Now, here we are. Nice quote. For every complex problem, there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong. And here's a beautiful answer of a clear, simple, and wrong answer of how to organise people inside a large organisation. We all recognise that, right? That's a clear, simple way of organising, managing, top-down. Difficulty here is when person R and person S, or person R and person W need to talk to each other. There's no real mechanism to do that except going via a line of management and getting decisions pushed down on you. So direct communication, direct conversation is rarer. Now we know it happens because there's the organisation on paper and then there's the organisation itself that actually happens. And where we're not enforcing this kind of thing too much, we might just pay lip service to it, and it only comes to bear when we have the review and the rewards at the end of the year, and the managers are responsible for all of that. But on the day-to-day working, we do find that we have the conversations we need to have. But it's quite hard. We make it very difficult for the right people to talk to each other when we have structures like this. And we don't really explore alternatives. I hear, even from people in the Agile space, well, we have to have hierarchies. It's a fact of nature. I don't think it is. I can't find any example in nature that looks like that. But what about that? That's a different way of organising it. Same people organise now into cross-functional teams, perhaps, or even cross-level. So people get to talk to the people they need to talk to for the work they're doing at any given time. That would be a different kind of structure to explore in an organisation. Now, you might still have some nominal reporting structure in there, but what's happening is you're getting to probably come together with other people, not be in different buildings with the people you need to work with and talk to, and have regular dialogue. So we've got structures like that we could explore, possibly this one. This model, I recreated this picture from a picture I found once and could never find again. But it was based on a model of mentorship. So in this organisation, nobody had managers. You were not assigned a manager when you joined the company. You were recommended a mentor. And you worked with your mentor to learn a particular area of work, a particular skill set. And when you were ready to move on, you moved on. So everyone had a mentor, and pretty much everyone was a mentor for someone else. And what it allowed you to do is to cross-skill yourself very quickly. So if you were, a software developer, but you felt like you benefit from a bit more design, visual design that would help you in your coding, then you would find a visual design mentor. And so we had this sort of looping thing going around where no one's at the top and no one's at the bottom. This is sort of much more of an egalitarian structure. Really, it's real self-organisation. It was up to you to find the right mentor. And so this is another structure that we could be exploring that would open up conversation much better in the kinds of environments we have. But I haven't seen this, except for that one picture. So, we embrace this. So to go through a few aspects of things we need to consider and think about when we're working within an organic system. So we've got this complex problem, and we need to contain it in some way. We need to understand it, we need to work on it. So I want to introduce these 4 aspects here. Metaphor. Now, you won't find these in an Agile guide. They're bigger ideas, I think, that will probably contain many of the things we are familiar with. Fractality, experimentation, and oscillation. So I'm going to explain each of those terms a bit more. What's important about this picture is those little sticks that are coming out of the words to suspend or to hold the complex problem that we have. I'm not holding it solidly. They've got some space, they've allowed some space around that. So you've got this sense of pulsation. The complex problem changes, it moves, you can't bind it, you can't hold it down. And to understand that a bit better, you could look at the contrast to that, which is kind of how we work at the moment. We've got our complex problem, we try and define it, we divide the labour up to get the work done, we work breakdown structures, and we accumulate this, we just sort of keep adding to it. But everything's held and bound very tightly, and if we don't get our definition right in the first place, we're probably going to fail, but it's really hard to get the definition right. So, nailing down is a term we often hear in these corporations. You've got to nail down the requirements document. It's probably the worst thing you can do, because we don't know. And dividing labour up, so you sort of split and you silo people, so your developers, your testers, your designers, your release people, and they don't talk to each other, they just do their bit of work, and it's all a handoff. Right? That's the work breakdown structure, hand a bit of work off to the next group of people. And I've worked in environments like that, and it's painful, it's hugely painful. Talk a bit about that in the workshop. So that's the contrast. So going back to, well, actually before we get that, what this often results in that. Blame at the end. These big projects are all designed up front and they follow the plan and they get to the end, and then we have something called a post-mortem. And the choice of language is such a giveaway, isn't it? You have a post-mortem when something dies. And so the post-mortems tend to be blame sessions, and people like to call them lessons learned, and that's a slightly better way of expressing it. But the lessons learned are left in the room, because everyone leaves the room, and now they're working on different projects with different people, so they can't carry the learning forward. The alternative in Scrum, as many of you know, is that you do retrospectives, and you do them frequently, once a week or once every 2 weeks, and the learning that comes out of that is carried forward into the next block of work. So it's directly relevant to the people who talk about it. So let's get back to our model here, metaphor. So I said earlier that metaphor is really important. Metaphor allows us, it literally means to carry across. That's its literal translation, to carry across. So taking an idea from one sphere into another. And what that does is it opens up our thinking in the place that we are. So in the software world, we do well to find metaphors that help us to understand our work better. And some of the older metaphors that we have things like engineer. Engineer is a metaphor for a software developer. Words like server, they're metaphors too, of course, aren't they? So we're finding something that's like the thing and naming it that. So we've got a bit caught up on this whole mechanical-minded engineering set of processes that we do. And quite a lot of software developers now don't use that term. They call them, there's a whole movement of people called software craftsmen, which is much more aligned with the kind of work that we do. Software development, remember, when we're doing it, we're always making something that has never been made before. There's almost zero exceptions to that. You might have to rebuild the system in a better language or something, but you're still making something that hasn't been made before. There's no reproduction. And so you don't really know what it's going to look like at the end. You can have a vision, you have a dream about what you want, you've got an idea, and you try and work towards it, and the parameters change around you. People's needs change, the technology changes. You hopefully would actually build, if it's successful, you end up building something better than you could possibly have imagined, because you've got a set of minds coming together to work on that. So we need to find different metaphors for it. You know, the metaphors I'd like us to start thinking about are metaphors like artists. Now, I don't just mean for the software developers, I mean anyone who's working in these kind of environments, anyone who manages or facilitates or guides or coaches or puts systems together or creates learning programs. There's an art to all of that. And rather than just thinking of ourselves as sort of mechanical beings who've learned, you know, a system of doing things and just sort of follow that step by step, we want to get out of that and actually start to be creative artists or poets, writers, dreamers, visionaries and dreamers. These are some metaphors that might actually, you know, help us to think about how we do our work. If you say, as a software engineer, I am like a poet, how does that affect what you do? How does that affect the conversations you have? Probably greatly. I was telling Suzanne yesterday that when I very first started coding, years ago, I loved the look of the code so much that I would print it out and stick it on my wall, and it looked like art, and it looked like poetry or something like that. And there's a commonality, you know, between poets trying to say things in the least amount of words possible, to express an idea, a big idea that people can imagine around it in the fewest words possible. And coders do that too. Coders want to use the smallest set of instructions to get the machine to do what the machine needs to do, and leave options open for additions onto that as well. So there are some similarities in that. So we're looking at fractality. What does that mean? It's a bit simpler actually to understand. So we're building systems, and systems have, you know, roughly look something like this. They've got different layers to them. And the old traditional way of doing it is to have a team at each of these levels. So we've got a presentation layer team, and we've got a database team, and we've got backend team. And they build their pieces, and then we have this phase called integration right at the end. And it's interesting to track these projects, because you talk to any individual team and ask them how the work is going, and they'll usually give you a thumbs up, everything's on track. And it's only when we have to start integrating the pieces that things actually really work. They start to fall apart at that point. Because we haven't done any end-to-end testing through it. We can't do end-to-end testing when you're not building end-to-end. So the fractal model says this. It says take a little tiny piece of each of this part of the system and get that running. You've got end-to-end. And we don't have to build the whole front end. We don't have to build every single feature. We just build one. And this is, of course, the Scrum approach to solving these problems. And in order to do that, you need to have people on your team who have between them all of the skills necessary. So it wouldn't help at this point to have a siloed organisation. You need people sitting down, talking to each other, playing around, experimenting, trying stuff out, and getting some flow going through the system. A term I've heard for this, which might be I'm just firing a trace bullet through the system. I'm not much one for war metaphors, but I know that does resonate. Or a walking skeleton is another term that has been used. It's a walking skeleton of the system. And so, back into the system, we can then, if we prove that works, we can then do it again. And here's, example of fractality, perhaps in an emergent system. We don't have to wait until a tree is fully grown before it bears fruit, which is what we're doing in software. Wait till the whole system is built before it delivers any value. A fruit tree will start to deliver fruit pretty early. The fruit will be small, it won't be great, but it is edible. So you have product. And as the tree grows, the fruit gets better, the tree gets bigger. And it's sort of modelled on itself. Each element of that is similar to the tree in the large is the same as the tree in the small, essentially. So that's fractality. And then, of course, experimentation is this idea of not being afraid. I think that's really what it is. So, when, I said that software is like, you don't know what you're going to make until you get to the end. It's very like theatre improvisation, software development. Improvisers in theatre make stuff up as they go along. They might have a loose theme or a character or something like that. But the story, the play, emerges from the interaction. So they experiment a lot. But in order to experiment, you have to have an environment that supports that. Experimentation, that if you do an experiment and it doesn't work out, that shouldn't be cause for punishment, obviously. So we need an environment where people are not just saying that they embrace failure, but they actually do. But even the word failure, why do we even need to use that? It's not failure, it's learning. Right? Embrace learning. And your pathway from A to B won't be a straight line. It will dip all over the place, it will fall down, it will go up, it will go sideways. But if we do it fast enough, if we iterate fast enough through these experiments, then we're going to get somewhere quite quickly. Whereas if you try and get it right the first time, you're going to work very slowly. So here's some experiments that never saw the light of day. That's actually pretty cool. It's a cooker on top of a fridge for a bedsit. I'd like to see that one. Hangover heaven. These are people who are trying out ideas. And they're funny, aren't they? They're going to laugh at them. But people took these ideas quite far enough to have a prototype and actually try to sell them from prototypes. No idea what that is. This? Again, if you've got a small house, you want to keep your baby quiet hanging out the window. I don't know what that is, but it looks like he's enjoying it. Alright, so here's, we all know this quote. Whether Thomas Edison actually said that or not, I don't know. It's the internet makes things up for us sometimes. But it's a good quote nonetheless. I haven't failed at just around 10,000 ways at them. So we need to do that. We need to be exploring and experimenting. You've got to contain it though. You can't just be exploring and the experiments get bigger and bigger. You want to do them so fast, like in a day. And that's why when you're writing code, you don't spend a long time sitting around talking about it. You're coding instantly. I'll give you an example. In a planning meeting in Scrum, people think you're just sitting around talking about what they're going to do. It's too many meetings, a waste of time. But actually, in the really good planning meetings, the coders have their laptop open and they're actually writing code. And they can rattle off code in 5 minutes or something, just enough to do a proof of concept or something. So you're having this dialogue through the code as much as through the conversation. And that's an experiment, we're doing it, but no, not like that. I didn't mean that. So you failed after that 5 minutes, you try something else. Or you just then you go, okay, well, explain that a bit better so I can understand it. So you can run up these experiments very quickly. And by the end of that planning meeting, everyone then should have a very clear idea about what they're building and why they're building it and who it's for. So the last one of these, oscillation, a little harder to explain, or it's a little harder to illustrate this one, but it's this idea of zooming in and out. So paired programming is a nice example of oscillation. You've got two people on the computer sharing a keyboard. One of them's using the keyboard and actually writing the code that has to be written at that moment in time. And the other person is pulling back from the detail of the code and thinking, how does that fit into the system as a whole? What can we, if we're writing this, there's something already written that's quite similar. Maybe we can extend or refactor so we don't have to write as much code and we've got cleaner code. So you've got this person kind of zooming out and looking at the bigger picture, at the architecture, at the design, and the other person is zooming in. And then they change places, and they take turns in doing that, and zoom in, zoom out. So we're looking at that idea, and these little coloured pictures at the bottom are essentially detail of that big picture. So if you saw that big picture as a sort of a lightweight architecture that's not yet filled in, you fill this in piece by piece, and you step back and you look at how it's working. Another way of thinking about it is this. So I did a search for unfinished portraits on Google, and there's lots of them. And what it tells me is that when painters were commissioned to paint portraits, they didn't just meet the person, do a sketch, go away, paint the picture and come back. What they probably did is, this is what this tells me, is that it was painted in iterations. So you've got an overall architecture, you can see there, of the pose and everything. But before this artist finishes the picture, he wants to get approval from the sitter that he likes the picture, right? And he's going to paint his face first, because that's probably the most important part. So you deliver the highest value, get the feedback on it that tells you where you're going next. So if you didn't like the face, you've got time to alter it. This one's quite fleshed out. I might have, see that's the zoom in of the detail. But you wouldn't just paint that head suspended in the middle of the canvas. You have to have some context for it, and that's your architecture. That's your overall design. But you don't have to have it all done. It can be very light touch. A similar one is a work in progress, looking at all the different ways we could have his hands. And then I think the little sketch here is the overall painting. So this is detail within a detail. The detail of one man from that larger picture, and then zooming in further the detail of the hands from that. And so this picture seems like it was created incrementally with either some feedback from the sitter himself, or just feedback from the artist, just to look at what the possibilities are and pick the best one. So it's sort of alignment, a lot of alignment going on there. So those are the things I think we can start to explore, play with, is metaphor, fractality, experimentation and oscillation. And so I've gone through this fairly quickly. I hope it was quick enough. Leaving you, I hope, with just some ideas to go away with and those questions. And I will share the slides here so you have the mapping of the two different system types and the questions and stuff like that. And just one last thing is this. I found this to be so important in collaboration. Let go of your own ideas, your old ideas, even the good ones. It's one of the hardest things to do. But that's what, for me, is the essence of collaboration. And we must collaborate if we're working in the organic space. We can't do things alone. So letting go of your old ideas. I think that's it. I'm done.